Peace, family. We are now live. Welcome to another episode, Black Magic 363. Oh, man, we're going to have a good time tonight, family. I want y'all to get comfortable. As y'all can see, I'm back with Isis Wisdom. Isis Wisdom, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Indeed. I want everybody to get comfortable. Hit that like button. Tell your friends and family we're live. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. I'm going to get to a few commercials, and then we'll be right back. All right, family?
Welcome to the Sacred Tree. This is Stardust Jewelry for the Collective. All of our pieces are spiritually downloaded, handcrafted, and created with the love and healing powers of our set. We pride ourselves on using nothing but the best crystals, 14 karat gold, and sterling silver to highlight the conductivity of this alchemical process. So many superpowers for us to tap into, and the crystals are here to help you. I always say whatever crystal you choose, it chooses you at the same time. It's a symbiotic relationship. So feel free to tap into the sacredtree.life, see what we have to offer. Rock.
It's the numerational session with King Simon. Text your full name and date of birth to 347-496-1022. That's 347-496-1022. And get my books on Amazon now. On Sunday, October 9th in Stone Mountain Village from 2 to 7 p.m. Papa Ashwa Kwesi and the Red Pillar will be in Stone Mountain. Get your tickets through Linktree/King Simon the Numerator or text now at 347-496-1022. Get your tickets now.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself, it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Petey was with me. Order your copy of Kayla Petey and the Forest on Amazon today.
Okay, family, so we are back. Listen, we're going to have a good show tonight. The name of the show tonight is American Gods. I seen a live you did, Isis, on your trip to Mexico, and I've been checking out some of your Instagram pics. I think you visited the museum, correct?
That's one of the places I visited. I also went to the actual pyramids. I went to the whole entire pyramid complex. Was like, whoa.
So listen, there's such a big movement. There's a lot of energy around in the so-called blacks in America claiming America again. I remember coming up in consciousness in the early 2000s. It was all about back to Africa, Africa this, Africa that. And I absolutely love the continent of Africa and everything it provides and the rich history and everything. But I remember it was just the Moors back then talking about we were indigenous. We have all types of movement now. We have FBA, ADOS. We have the brother, what's the brother name? I forget the brother, Dan Calloway. We got so many people. Yeah. We got so many people talking about how the blacks are indigenous. The blacks in America right now we're indigenous here and we've been here. So it's like a huge, there's so much energy surrounding this topic that I'm like, I got to talk to several people about this. So I want to start with, let's start with Isis Wisdom. Let's start, my sister. Let's start with, we're so used to Kemetic spirituality, the Kemetic gods, Kemetic goddesses, Isis, Osiris. What about the American gods? What can you tell me about the American gods that we may have been overlooking while we were studying Osiris and Isis?
Well, one of the things I want to say to you guys is that first and foremost, there was two Egypts. So you had the New Egypt, which is overseas. But the first Egypt was actually in the Americas. And many people do not know this. And I also want to point out as well that, you've heard the term, most people think it's a theory, but I can tell you from cosmic knowledge that it's a very real thing. This planet has been recreated 7 times. And so during the time period, during those 7 times that the planet had been created, Egypt was in different places on Kai. Okay? And so with Egypt being in a different place on Kai, you can begin to start researching old world maps where they were speaking about the very first Egypt. If you guys look at the Mississippi River is actually the first Nile River that took place. And we also, if you look at Memphis, Tennessee, this isn't the Memphis overseas is not the same as the Memphis in the States, but they put a lot of information out there for us to see that's been hidden in plain sight. And if you take the time out and you start studying the old maps, that Mississippi River, AKA the Nile River, And then the various pyramid complex, well, small complexes, but nonetheless, we have pyramids. We had mounds all throughout Utah, all throughout Tennessee, all throughout Arizona. Arizona is definitely one place I would recommend people to go check out, so you guys can see the old world there. It's very prevalent there. When you look at the actual, what appears to be mountains, and they're flat at the top, those are cut down trees from the old world. Those were the old crystal trees that used to grow from the old world. So look at it from this perspective. Egypt has been moving around. So when you look at some of the older maps, you're going to start to see that the one overseas, they call it the New Egypt. So what many people also don't know is that a lot of the pharaohs that they said that they were finding actually came from the Americans, and they weren't revealing that information. Okay, just like when they found the tombs here and the mummies here and the pyramids and inside the temple, the Isis temple here in Arizona. You have an Osiris temple in Salt Lake City, and I know you heard about that 12,000-year-old mummy that is found at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
12,000 years, 12,000 years old in the Americas. How long has these other people been here? 6,000 years, maybe 6,500 years they've been here. So if they've been here for 6,500 years, then what is this mummy that they found here that's 12,000 years old? What is that? Atlantis was also here. So you guys got to understand that during the time period when the plants were being recreated, a lot of things were also being moved around constantly. And you also have to remember that back in the day, the old maps showed the United States, the states being listed as countries at one point in time. Okay, so each state, the governor himself was actually the president of that actual particular country. So I'm talking about taking it way back, way back, way back. So we have that in our bloodline. A lot of us have ancient Egyptian in our bloodline. It's just not talked about because we've been programmed to think that that is something that is far away from us. That is something that we're not possibly a part of because of their advanced technology and things like that. We couldn't possibly associate ourselves with that type of greatness. But everywhere you look, they can't hide it. You can't hide it. It's like pyramids everywhere. Hieroglyphs are written everywhere in their particular respective languages, but there are hieroglyphs like down there in Mexico City. I saw they have hieroglyphs there. Okay, but their hieroglyphs look a lot different than the ones that you see in ancient Egyptian. What you're going to realize is that a lot of those pyramid complexes were mimicking that particular Egypt. They dedicated, I believe, the Pyramid of the Sun. They dedicated that pyramid to Tahuti, which, if you know anything about Tahuti, Tahuti is the heart of Ra. They dedicated that pyramid to Ra, and they dedicated that pyramid to Horus. So I'm going to talk to you about a wonderful experience I actually had, when I was there and I actually got a response. I was touching one of the pyramids. I was touching the Pyramid of the Sun because the way they got it set up, they don't let you go up and climb at the top of the pyramids anymore. They said that they're not doing that because of COVID, right? But I'm like, what the hell does COVID got to do with somebody climbing up the top of that pyramid when you're outside?
You know what I'm saying?
What are you talking about? So I asked them, I said, what the hell is going on with that? And so I had got a download, and what I was told was that the reason why they won't let anybody climb the top of the pyramids is because a lot of the indigenous there was doing massive meditations. And the mass meditations that they were doing, like when the whole thing went down over in Australia, and about 60% of Australia was on fire. What most people don't know is that the indigenous of Australia called down to the indigenous here in Mexico City. The indigenous in Mexico City started reaching out to all the indigenous tribes all throughout the Americas. And they said that we're going to go ahead and we're going to meditate. So they meditated. This happened 3 years ago. They went to the top of the pyramids and they all started meditating for the rain to come over Australia.
Wow.
The indigenous already went to the Australian government and had told them, we can make it rain. We have the power to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And the Australian government, of course, is like, I don't see how you're going to be able to put out this fire, blah, 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 blah. And so that's when the phone call was made and all these things took place. And the people were singing. They were dancing. They were drumming. And they were calling on that rain god, okay? They was calling on that rain god. And lo and behold, what happened? Rain came over Australia, and it rained for a hell of days, and all that fire got put out in Australia. That kind of power right there sent a message about how powerful we are, which is why we're the most hated around the world, okay? But we're also the most favored by the Most High. Our power comes from the Most High. So we just need to understand who we are and understand that the times are changing because the ancestors are now starting to jump into their descendants. And so that whole thing, when you said it seems like there's a big movement that's taking place, you're damn right it's taking place, because it's time for them to give that shit up there in the United States. It's got to go. Those who have been holding on to it for a long period of time, it's time for them to release it. They know that their time is up. They know they only have very limited time before Nemesis starts burning everybody up. Because right now, that sun that y'all dealing with in the Americas right now, it's a different type of sun.
You said Nemesis? That's the name? Nemesis?
Nemesis is over the Americas right now.
Could you elaborate on that?
It's the sun, the black sun. When you look at the sun, you'll notice that the sun looks white. Have you noticed how you see the sun white? Okay, that sun is Nemesis, because Nemesis is about to bring judgment down on America, a serious judgment. And not just America, and different parts of the world, judgment is coming. Now, I have some videos and things like that I'll be putting up on my channel where you see two individuals that ain't us standing side by side to each other, and a spontaneous combusted on the spot inside of a convenience store. And I've been telling people about Nemesis, and I've been telling people how he's going to start bringing the punishment down. I said, you guys thought I was playing. They've been covering up the stories about at least 100,000 people over in Europe who died from the heat. They're covering up the stories of all the people that are dying in heat in the Americas. They can't stand the heat. I got people hitting me up in Kentucky talking about how they're calling in to the air conditioning companies because it's too damn hot. The air conditioning isn't working for them. My son, who's in California, received to tell me the whole time he was up there visiting, he said, literally, California, where he's at, clear skies. He said, Mom, that sun is burning so hot that nobody's outside now. Nobody's outside because of the heat. So we need to pay attention to the times that we're living in. Nature is going to be the very thing that brings us deliverance.
Ain't that something? You know, I love when I hear individuals like yourself say things like that, as far as the sun and this new sun and it being white, because some things aren't in the books. Like, we always look to books for information, but sometimes we have to use our intuition. I remember driving in Brooklyn about a year and a half ago. I called a brother. I hope he's watching. I called a brother named Alkebalon 44. I said, yo, you notice the sun is white? Why is the sun? Why is it? Didn't that shit used to be yellow? I was like, yo, the light is like a bright white. I'm like, it's like white. And he was like, he was just like, I'm gonna look into it. But I remember recognizing that and feeling that intuitively. So when you say things like that, I love it, because it's confirmation that I ain't bugging out.
No, you're not.
What I want to ask you, in terms of us having the DNA of Egypt within us, and that's why it resonates with us, would you say, when you talked about the hieroglyphs, because we have that in our DNA, do you think that's why we started doing graffiti on the walls? Because it's in us, and that's like a continuation for what we did in ancient times?
That is correct. And also, it's one of the main reasons why we also don't like to speak the English language. So they created what you call Ebonics, the Ebonics dictionary. We know by spirit that this is a language that we should not be speaking. If anybody does their research, they will realize that the English language is the #1 satanic language in the world. So we, because we're connected to earth and we're connected to the Most High, we know when something doesn't feel right. It might be on a subconscious level, but we begin to start adapting to our environment. So what we do is we start creating another language system, because at one point in time of day, we only communicated via telepathy. Okay, the people, the Tehuacatans down there, and the Aztecs and the Olmecs, which was the most advanced society in Mexico when it was in its prime, they were utilizing signs, symbols, hand gestures. Okay, facial expressions. That was their way of communication. So we also had to take in consideration, you know, when you start wanting to go back further and further and further, the English language itself is a limited language. So if you're trying to get deeper information, you're not going to, there's not even terms, there's not even English language terms to define how vast this thing really is.
Right.
Okay. And they tell you, look, when you talk to them, you say, okay, what was your name? And then they give you this long ass pronunciation. And you're like, seriously, what am I supposed to do with that? They's like, that's exactly the reason why we don't even bother to go down that road, because we know you don't have the ability to either pronounce the language because you never heard the language before, or it's so advanced that we're just going to rock with you with frequencies and tones and symbols and things like that. So that was the main way that they used to communicate. This whole thing of us talking is very primitive. And we are going to be returning back to the way we used to communicate, which is via telepathy. We are headed back in that direction now.
Indeed. I noticed that picking up, people being able to call you when you're thinking about them. I've noticed things like that picking up. In terms of the Olmecs, I've heard before that the Olmec heads that we see, these huge heads, like, you know how you said the trees, that some of the trees, they cut off the top. It was like a crystal tree at one time. Some people say that the Olmec heads, those were really people, and I guess they turned to stone. They're not like statues; those are real people at one time. And I guess the person turned to stone or something like that. But that was like an actual person at one time. Have you ever heard of that?
I never heard of that, and not even when I was down there, I didn't hear any tour guides ever mention anything like that. I've never heard that before. What they did mention was how technologically advanced they were. They talked about their system and how their system wasn't ran. Their governing system was a shaman. And so that was the guy that everybody listened to, because the shaman would be able to predict the weather. The shaman would be able to predict the drought. So that way they would go ahead and be able to do the necessary things so they wouldn't go into a drought. The shaman was the one who did the spiritual work and so forth and so on, and gave the guidance to the village or the communities and so forth and so on. The guys were also believed, the shamans were also believed to be gods. And I asked the tourist guide, I said, you do realize, I said that the shamans were believed to be gods. He said, yes. And he smiled at me because he was like, damn, I didn't know you knew about that. And I said to him, I said, well, not only am I aware about that, I said, I'm also aware that a lot of the shamans in Mexico right now are gods. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, people tend to want to think always mythical when you start talking about the gods. Okay. When the truth of the matter is that you guys have no idea how many of you that are walking around right now that are actual gods. But you've been stripped of your cosmic knowledge. You've been stripped of your culture. You've been stripped of these different things that would have helped you get on the correct path to where you're supposed to be, so you could begin to know who you are. But because we didn't have that living in the United States of America, and it worked very hard to make sure that we were stripped. So we don't come together and think on a collective level that we can change this shit, because we don't realize how powerful we really are. We don't. And I want to say to everybody on this live right now, and you guys is probably going to trip out when I say this, but I'm only saying this based upon what I've discovered recently. And that is, it is imperative that when you get into these spaces that you always remain grounded. Because what happens is that if you're not grounded, you can get yourself caught up in those other realms, and you can be deceived very easily in that realm if you're not grounded. So that whole trip that I took to Mexico City, when I booked all those different events to take place, I didn't even realize until probably the third day. I realized right after we went to the pyramids. I said, this was the most grounding experience I ever had in my life, because of all the phenomena and stuff like that was taking place when I was there. You have to remain grounded in this thing. So when I say remain grounded, I need you guys to understand, so above, so below. If you got gods above, you got gods below.
What you said, some of us are gods. What distinguishes a god from a regular human being down here in this realm?
First of all, their capabilities and their powers is one. Their wisdom is two. Me and you had a conversation about you. Remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And so if you're on the right path, if you're doing your meditations, if you're doing the necessary things to get different upgrades, because there is ways that you can also do upgrades to get to other levels, then you become completely what we call self-aware. Okay. And that's one of the things I teach in my program is about that. So once that happens, like, you could be a walking God and not know you're a walking God. And you just don't know. Because when you come here, you do a soul contract, and the first thing that they remove from you is your memory, so you don't remember who you are.
Who's they?
Who's
they?
Anybody that comes on, anybody that's born on the Kai or the planet Earth. When you come here, you must understand that this is a school of karma. When you come here to work out your karma for what you did when you were someplace else. That's why you're here. So when you're working out those different things, what I'm trying to get you guys to understand is that there are certain upgrades and certain initiations that one must go through to get to certain states of awareness. Most people don't know that. People say, oh, I'm a walking God today. Yeah, that might be true. But let me ask you a question. What type of elevations, what type of meditations did you do? What type of training did you get done? You know, how did you find this information out? How did you tap into that? Do you know how to tap into that particular power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If you don't know how to do these things, then you're not going to be able to get to where you got to go. So the ancient Egyptian mystery schools taught these things. Mm-hmm. Okay? They taught these things in terms of your upgrades and things that you had to do to elevate, because we understood that you are also human, which means that you are subject to the rules of Earth. Okay? Mm-hmm. What I came to really appreciate is the human experience. And what I came to appreciate is how powerful the Most High has actually made all of us humans. Because number one, we have something that they don't have out there. Number one, we have the ability to have free will. I told people, I said, you angelic, I said, when you leave from here, you're going to return back to where you came from. I said, angels don't have free will. They also do not have the power to create. So you're here on planet Earth and you were given two abilities: the choice of free will and your ability to create as the creator. We have the right to exercise those things. Out there, it's a different set of rules. The game is played different. The laws are different. If a God gets caught moving against someone's free will, the penalty behind that is very severe in that realm. Where here, you're just going to get karma for it. Okay? So the rules are different. So I've come to really appreciate the human experience in all this. During my journey, there was something that it was crazy how that revelation came to me, because a lot of revelations came to me when I was there. I think that one of the most important things was that I'm starting to now find out what I'm tied to and what I'm connected to. Prior to me coming down there, I did what we call a ancient ancestral investigation. I wanted to find out who my first wing ancient ancestors were. Okay, I knew who I knew who the immediate bloodline ancestors are, but I wanted to find out more information about the tribes and so forth and so on. And this is when I found out that I had Arawic in me. Arawic tribe is Haiti, which would make sense as far as my connection to Papa Legba, because I talk to Legba all the time. I couldn't understand what that was. I'm like, why do I have this affinity for you? Okay, well, now that makes sense. Okay, even though I'm Ifa, I still have an affinity for the Voodoo pantheon. Okay. Finding out that I have Aztec in me, finding out that I had Inca, finding out that I had Mayan in me, finding out that I had Apache in the bloodline, finding these things out. So then I started doing deeper research, because I started finding out how these tribes, they were saying they don't know where they came from. So when we went to the Tehakatans down at that complex down there, I asked them, I said, where did these people come from? They literally told me, every single person I've talked to down there has said the exact same thing. We don't know where they came from, and we don't know where the Aztecs came from. They said, we believe that the Aztecs came further north, which would be Turtle Island, and came in and invaded the Tehakatans and took them over, reclassified them, and called them that name, because they really didn't even know what to classify them as, right? The Aztecs took over, and they ruled for several thousand years. Then came the Spaniards. The Spaniards came over, and then they took over along with the Moorish conquistadors. This needs to be talked about. Okay? You had the Spanish conquistadors, and you had the Moorish conquistadors that came in and assisted in the slaughter of the indigenous peoples of Mexico. So when you look at the Mexicans, they are a combination of, we say Mongoloid, because they have Asian in them. You see a lot of the Asians down here in Mexico, they have that in them. You have Spaniard in them, and then you also have, quote unquote, the black or the indigenous. They're a combination of all three. For that reason, I tell people, I said, well, when you look at it from a bloodline perspective, I said, they're our brothers and sisters. I can't be on some old Well, nah, I'm not going to just pretend like they not. I can't do that because now I done went down and seen some shit. And see, it's one thing for you to hear someone speaking. It's another thing for you to take yourself somewhere and you got to sit down and you got to see it. And you get to see people who look just like you, same complexion as you, living a total different culture. So then it changed your whole perspective about what you thought. See, the difference between the United States and Mexico is Mexico preserved the culture. So if you want to know more about your history, because you probably had that in your bloodline, I would strongly suggest that you guys travel down to Mexico and go look at all the pyramids that are down there, all the temples that are down there. And there are some temples that are structured like pyramids, but they're not pyramids, they're actual temples. So it's also important that we know the difference between the pyramids and the temples. Okay, and what they were utilized for. Go ahead.
I remember one time, and I hate misquoting people, but I'm gonna try to say it as much as he said. I remember one time Bobby Hemmett, when you're talking about bloodlines, and he was talking about the black man and woman in America, and he was saying how one of the reasons why we stand out from the rest of the black people in the diaspora is because we got so many different bloodlines in us, and we're so mixed. We done mixed with damn near everything, so that creates basically a new nigga. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you get.
Universal divine being. You are what you call a universal divine being, and you have all of the information and knowledge of your ancestors stored within your body. From all tribes.
From all tribes. That's powerful. That's powerful. So, in terms of astral traveling, and in terms of, you know, when we dealing with, you know, we got so many people that this is the age of awakening. So many people are awakening. So many people are coming on the internet with knowledge. There's so many people are saying somewhat different things from other people. And people are saying, I travel the astral realm, or I travel the quantum field, or whatever. And they're coming back with information that may be different from another person's information. My question to you is the astral realm subjective? Is it just a projection of your subconscious? So it's not the astral realm, it's your astral realm, because everybody's astral realm is different based on where you're at subconsciously or mentally?
That's part of it, but also you have to take into consideration timelines. That's something that we don't think about either. The timelines of when these things took place, because they can be picking up a story or a particular incident or whatever have you during a particular timeline. Okay, and that really did take place. Right. Okay, but I need you to understand the past, the present, and the future is going on at the same time. And so you're living different realities all at the same time. And you also have to remember, and I spoke about this before, I'm bringing out knowledge that most people don't know when I speak about the higher aspects. The higher aspects are the many different reincarnated versions of yourself. And so a good example of you seeing this displayed was in that Marvel movie that just came out. That I talked about that with the Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange. Right. Gave a very clear depiction of exactly what I'm talking about. So you got, let's say you got 400 different versions of who you are, which you probably do, right? And you are who you are here, but then if you're in Sirius, you're this over here, and if you're in this over on this star system over there, you're this person over there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I need you guys to kind of rock with me when I tell you I'm speaking from a multidimensional perspective. Right. Okay. What I teach people is how to tap in to get in touch with all those different aspects of yourself, because yourself will begin to start teaching you about you. And there's no journey like the journey of self-discovery. And there's no journey like the higher versions of you teaching you things so you can learn things. That's why I say to people, you got to go within. But it was never described to the people, what does it mean to go within? To go within means that you go within to meditation to seek your answers. And then you'll start getting this other knowledge that you don't see written in the books. That's why it seems foreign to most people when they look at me and they think that I'm crazy. And I tell people all the time, before that movie even came out, if you go back and listen to my earlier lives, before that movie even came out, I told y'all. I was giving y'all step-by-step instructions of what you need to do in order to do that. And then what do? They put a flat-out little depiction of what I was saying when the Scarlet Witch was meditating and going into the damn multiverse and the interactions that she was having as a Scarlet Witch. But then I'm like, but I told y'all this 2 years ago.
Facts.
Or when I talked about the children and who they are and how powerful they are, and here comes a new Thor movie out, and then you're seeing them kick ass in the damn movie. So either I'm crazy or I'm tapped into something that's giving me information and knowledge. Which is it?
Were you born spiritually sensitive, or is this something you
I believe so, because I've been communicating to the dead since I was 5. Told my parents I came from Sirius. You couldn't tell me nothing about that. My dad would tell you to this day. I told him, I said, I come from the Sirius star system. I come from right there. Showed him everything. And my dad used to trip on me about that. He'll tell you to this day. I used to tell him all that when I was a kid, all the time. I come from Sirius. And then lo and behold, I find out I come from Sirius X.
Wow.
You know, it's an inner knowing. And it also needs to be understood. And I think this is going to be a really interesting piece for me to connect for you guys. When we went to the anthropology museum down there, right? We got this tour guide. And that was crazy, even how we got him, because the whole story, how that first trip got messed up, and then we just said we're going to go on our own, and then here's a damn tour guide right there, the only one there talking about I'm a tour guide. I'm like, what? So I end up breaking him off. We go up in there, and he starts breaking a lot of stuff down about the whole area. And as he's talking, and I'm seeing the pieces and things like that, it was some crazy stuff, because we were literally seeing the same beings that are actually in the pictures that we took when we went to the springs. We went to the hot springs in Mexico City. And there's mountains in the background. You can actually see giant faces of giants in the background. Like, this shit is crazy. But nonetheless, what we noticed is that there was apparitions in the pictures. So I was like, I looked and I said, what the hell is this in this picture? So I'm showing my peoples, they're looking at it, they said, what the hell? I said, is that a ship? What the hell is that? This triangular thing was just sitting in the picture. Tripped us out, right? So then I'm going through the pictures, I'm scrolling through the pictures, and I'm seeing these apparitions of these different beings in the pictures. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on? So when we get to Anthropology Museum, he starts taking us to see these beings. We didn't even know that. So we're looking. I said, yo, this is the same shit that. So we're pulling out the phone and showing him the phone. I said, look at this shit. This is what we saw when we was at the springs. So little did we know that they were the ancestors, okay, and the gods. Because you got to remember, you got gods that are part of your bloodline too. Were communicating to us the entire time when we were on that trip.
Amazing.
It was so that whole trip was so magical, fam, that I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. It changed me internally. It changed me. It gave me a whole different perspective. And I literally heard my ancestors say when I was walking past that, when I was walking on the side of that sun pyramid, I literally heard them say, "We're happy that you're here. This is a part of your history. Connect to it." And I had goosebumps all on my arms. And my people was like, why the hell you got goosebumps on your arm? I said, because they're talking to me right now. At this point, I'm walking to the front of the pyramid, and I go, and they got the pyramid blocked off, but they had this one section where they let you actually put your hands on the pyramid. Because I said, I got to touch it. I just have to touch it. I have to, right? And when I went to go touch the pyramid, that shit was so deep. I shot energy up the pyramid, purposely shot energy up the pyramid. Bro, I got a response from the pyramid. It shot the energy back down and hit me. And I was like, oh shit. I said, you feel that? She was like, yeah. I said, I just got a response.
What response you got?
First eye, because if the first eye's open, you have the ability to see the unseen. Horus took a staff and said, boom, and shot the energy back down to me to acknowledge me, to let me know I heard you.
Wow.
So I was like, oh shit. So then I go to the pyramid of the moon. And when you're walking towards, when you go in the direction towards the actual pyramid of the moon, you're gonna feel an energetic shift immediately. So I knew at that point, I said, okay, I just walked in. I'm not even on Earth right now. I picked up on that immediately. I said, I literally went through a portal. Me and my people was like, yeah, we definitely went through a portal. We definitely did that. And so I'm like, just feeling the energy out. And I literally said to them, I said, I'm picking up Anunnaki energy here. There's Anunnakis. Anunnakis was over here. I go to touch the pyramid of the moon. I'm feeling the energy. And I'm getting response from that pyramid as well. And I'm like, there were Anunnakis here. I said, these people weren't from here. These people came from someplace else. So I started getting downloads kind of heavy. I went into meditation and I began to start asking my first wing ancient indigenous ancestors more information about that pyramid because I wanted to know why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And they had told me, they said, you were correct when you said that you picked up on the Anunnaki energy. And I said, well, they said that the people don't know where they came from. They said that is correct, but they came from all different star systems across the galaxy. So the Aztecs came from the star systems. The Tahakitans came from the star systems. A lot of us came from different star systems, which is the reason why that technology that they utilize, when you look at the tools that they said they utilized to build these pyramids, you're going to look at this shit and be like, there's no way. There's no, you ain't going to make me believe this shit. Ain't no way in the hell, especially when you start talking about the height of these beings. Okay, let's just say that they weren't no taller than, let's say, 4 feet tall. 5 feet was considered tall back in the day. So these beings were very short.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that this big ass pyramid of the sun, this huge ass pyramid of the sun was built with these little tools? How, Sway? How? And every single temple that they put up around these pyramids are calendars. So they studied the months, they studied the stars. Everything was put up strategically according to the sun cycles of that time. So I was like thinking about the mind of these people at that time. This is the stock that we come from. We come from that. We know, we innately know how to do this shit. We are builders. We know how to do this. Yeah. It's been within us for a long period of time. And that's why I've been on a quest to find out more information. I'm going to be doing a lot more, like I'm going to be going down to Belize. I'm going to be spending time down there in Belize because there's some stuff there that I'm going to check out and tap into down there. I'm going to be traveling to Tulum. They got a huge pyramid in Tulum that I want to go check out where the Incas are. I'm being pulled in that direction to come see them. You know what I'm saying? Because the Incas are also part of my bloodline. So I'm being pulled to go see the Incas. You know what I'm saying? To see what messages and things like that they have. But my goal is simple, and that is to help our people to be able to connect to their past. So that way they'll understand where they're going in their future.
Right. Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? But you guys have got to, I'm like, yo, it's cool to go up to the New Egypt. I'm not knocking it. But when it comes to you wanting to know more about you, you need to travel all throughout the Americas because this is where you're from. This is where you're born. This is where your ancestry is. And we're cosmic as hell. Period.
What do you think about crop circles? Do you think there's some powerful messages behind them? Are they a hoax? What's your thoughts on that?
It's 50-50.
50-50? It's
50-50. You have people out there that are, okay, we're going to send this message out. You have people in the government that purposely send that stuff out for people to go and do certain things. That's one. But they do get communication for certain things as well. The thing is that you got to figure out who are they communicating to. Okay, so 50. So I say 50% is false and 50% is true when it comes to those.
This new sun that you talk about, Nemesis, I know that has a lot of people curious. The light that comes from Nemesis is what star system is it? Is this coming from a particular star system? That
Nemesis is the other side of Ra.
It's just the other side of Ra.
It's the other side of Ra. You got to remember, we live in a planet of duality. What does that mean? You have a shadow side, and then you have a light side. That's the shadow side of Ra. It's much more stern. And they do call him the destroyer. And he is here. And that great solar flash is going to take place in this lifetime. That is a very real thing. But right now, a lot of people are being what we call irradiated off the planet at this time. Okay, so just pay attention to that. They're putting it out there themselves. One of my people told me that they went to a conference out in Sedona, and they said that there was only 2 indigenous people in the whole damn conference, right? And she said, man, I was amazed at what I was being told, because literally these people were sitting up there having a conversation, said, we're not going to be here much longer. We're going to be extinct soon. And they were just sitting up there talking about it like on some regular, like, well, I guess this is the end. This is the fate that we're going to have to face at some